or like an actual investor, because
Hmm.
then
Long
you can
term.
narrow down who you want to follow.
Hmm.
And it also
Hmm.
narrows down what type of knowledge you're going to be accumulating, because it could be very overwhelming. Everyone has different techniques. Also, they look at different time frames and have different strategies. So it's like once you have that narrowed down as to what you want to focus in and chime in on what type of investor or trader you want to be, then you can narrow that down.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think the biggest lesson, I see you guys talking a lot about round tripping, and I think that's probably my biggest lesson learned from the earlier, I think like everyone, I got into in 2021 and got into bought some Doge, saw the market or the money I put in go up pretty rapidly, and then started putting a lot of additional money that I had in savings accounts and stuff, and lost a lot going through that cycle. And but I'm still just really intrigued with just crypto in general. But I made the mistake, and I see a lot of everybody talking about different people they follow. And I probably unfollowed a lot of people just over the last couple of years. Like I know at the very beginning, I'm sure I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Was it BitBoy? Like
Hmm.
everybody was following him, and then we're talking like back in those 2021, maybe 2022, and but I didn't really know people would kind of shield things and give you bad
Right.
information. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's just like anything. You with time, you start weaving out what
hmm
doesn't make sense to you or doesn't benefit you, right? So
yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna see the rainbow at the end of the road. So I'm not
Yeah.
worried about you.
I learned a lot for sure.
Well, that was a really interesting conversation y'all were having. So I went ahead and started the recording when y'all were talking about mentality and that sort of thing. I thought that was good to pick up
Nice,
on.
nice.
And I don't mean to cut y'all off. I just wanted to kind of, welcome everybody to the thing that we're doing this morning. This one's going to be kind of laid back. We do these every once in a while. We're still going to
Hmm.
go over some things. We'll still, have the Q&A. So anything y'all want to talk about, that's kind of what I mean by it being more laid back. I do have some things I'm going to present, but I'm going to keep it as short as possible so we can go into, the altcoins that we want to look at. So, welcome Alan, Leon, Luke, and of course, T. Thank you for being here. So we'll just kind of go through. I want to piggyback on what you and T just talked about, Alan, uh, just very briefly, because one thing we can do, even if we don't have a lot of experience, which is nothing to be, to feel bad about. I mean, everybody's at a different point in their journey. But one thing we can do to help us understand a little bit better how the market works is think of it in terms of sentiment or the way that the average market participant thinks when they're entering, and they'll call these people retail, whatever. But generally, what happens, and let me see if I can find a good chart here. We'll talk about ETH, and that might be the easiest one, just because it's got a lot longer time period that we can look at here. But from a macro viewpoint here, most people are getting in at the top, right? Like you'll get a lot of news showing up at the very top. If you think about your friends contacting you when, hey Don, welcome. If you think about your friends contacting you when things are really pumping hard, maybe you got in way back down here, but they're contacting you way up here. So that's typically how they react when they're not in the crypto market as often as we are, in it every day. So once the news cycles reach a fever pitch, and then they're entering on that final, 20 to 30% of the push, which they still might make a 2x or something. But the problem is, just like you were saying, Alan, they're doing the round tripping, and we still do it sometimes ourselves. We're not immune to it, no matter how long we've been in the market. So you get this huge push, and there's even more people jumping in here at the top. They're called exit liquidity, and then the market flushes, and then now they've become a bag holder, right? They're holding all the way down to the bottom, and then once the market finally pumps again, they're getting out for a break even sometimes even. So you know, those are things that we have to think about. That's why support and resistance is so important, and why we preach those areas to be entering, those areas to be exiting, because we know those are areas that there's going to be a lot of articles out there saying, hey, you know, the market's just going to keep pumping to $1 million Bitcoin, and we know that's not the case. So just some things to keep in mind. I know that was very brief, and there wasn't a lot of meat to that, you know, what I was talking about. We can get into it more later, you know, in another video or whatever. But I think it is very important to consider that, for example, just one more thing I just wanted to show you here real quick. If you look at Bitcoin, what it tends to do at those tops, and this has been talked about at length. Let me see, where am I at? Hang on, I got to put it on the weekly. This is talked about at length by other people on X, but maybe you haven't seen it yet. You know, you'll get that first pump, and then you'll get a dip right before the final pump, but it'll just barely get back above that previous one. You know, Bitcoin likes to do this a lot on shorter time frames. So you get a sweep, what we call liquidity. You got a lot of people where people are going long here, like we just talked about. They think it's just going to keep going. But you've also got a lot of people entering shorts here. They're saying, okay, you know, I know that the market is overheated. I'm just going to put a short in here and hope that I'm right. And then what happens is the market makers, they push up there, they take all these stops out for these shorts, and then they also drop the price for these people that went long as well. So now they're trapped. So that's what we talk about when when these market makers are going for liquidity. They're going to the area where there's the most money to be grabbed before, you know, the market turns around. And the thing to understand about market makers is they can do whatever they want. I mean, they're not beholden to, money, because, you know, they're the ones making the market. They've got access to all these, if you're talking about stocks, they've got access to all these stocks that they can either buy or sell. Or, you know, with crypto, they've got access to all these tokens they can buy or sell. So it's not really about money for them. It's just about supply. You know, do they have access to enough supply? Because they're not going to take a loss. It's always going to not round trip. It's always going to come back around to where they bought, or they're always going to make a profit. Because what they're doing is, as price is coming up, they're already putting in their shorts as price is coming up here. And so then when price does eventually turn around, you know, they start to break even here. And then as price comes down more, they start to make a profit. And then they're building their long position, you know, as it comes down like that as well. And that's assuming they're not an insider. Of course, insiders are going to know, you know, where the areas are to buy and sell. But that's just a quick view on how market makers see the market, and one way that we can use that information to, you know, help give us an advantage as well.
Can I come in really quick?
Sure.
I want to add something. Based on what Ricky just said, you might, like, if you're new, you might be asking yourself, well, how do I know this is a top within the run? Like, how do I know that the market makers are going to flush and just finish the cycle? And all you really need to know as a newcomer is just focusing on the weekly and the 2-week time frame. And then you pull up just two bands on the trading view chart, which is the 21 EMA and the 51 EMA. That's all you need. You don't need to know anything else. Then from there, you just look at the clues that pulls up within those bands. So for instance, I'll have Ricky pull that up for you right now.
Are you using the exponential?
EMAs, yeah.
Okay.
The 21 and the 50. So you would have known, I'll wait for Ricky to pull it up to give an example. Okay. So you would have known that after this last pump up at the second top, where it was at like a little bit higher than 59K, yeah, that one exactly, you would have known it was going to go back down because you saw the finishing candles that finished below the blue ribbon. So that is what I mean when you see, like, you need to just look at the hidden clues, because you'll always have, the chart will always silently tell you what's coming before it happens, but you just have to pay attention to it. So as a newcomer, I would highly recommend looking at the weekly within these two bands. This cycle, on the other hand, has been so volatile that it's disrespected the 21 EMA. So I would more focus on the 50 EMA and then both switch back to the 2-week, because the 2-week on the 21 EMA, it hasn't been disrespected. So those are just two things that I'd like you guys to consider when you guys want to know, okay, when do I have to pull out my money, and am I at risk to round tripping my bags? Because yeah, it's good to know that there's market makers controlling the market, but how is it going to benefit you as a newcomer? Because you really don't know, and you're just new, right? So you don't know how all of this is working. So what are the key factors that's going to actually give you some hidden clues? And these are it right here.
Yeah, I like that. The 2-week, it is respecting it. So she's talking about this 21 is the blue line here, by the way. So just go on your, you can go on your 2-week on TradingView or whatever platform you're using, and then you can go into indicators and type in moving average exponential, and just bring up that one right there. And then all you have to do is go into the settings for it right here, go to inputs, and then you can change the number right there to 21, or to put your 50 as well, change the color and everything. So yeah, that was good. That's I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, let's see here. So yeah, Bitcoin dominance, Tatiana's talked about this at length as well. What are we sitting at, 65 something? And she's thinking maybe as high as 68, so not much further to go there. And then we're seeing the inverse relationship with ETH Bitcoin pair, where it continues to reject. So until this takes place and starts turning back around, this is gonna probably just kind of go sideways a bit, and then it'll be ready to break out. Let's see, so
Bitcoin dominance, don't forget to mention that the Bitcoin dominance, the ceiling target is 68.5.
okay.
So my range right now is between 66.5 to 68.5, 68.5 being the highest. But what's more important is what we're looking at is within the monthly time frame is the RSI, because there's a trend line that's being respected dating back to 2019. We haven't yet touched that. So I'm eyeing that for when we do touch it, because when we do touch it, whether we're at 66.5 or even below 66.5, that is literally what we need to pay attention to, because that's going to tell us, okay, the top is in.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to focus more on the RSI than the actual chart right now.
Okay. Were you talking about this right here? This?
No, the other way around. From 2019 going all the way, and then follow that the trend line. Sorry, not 2019, 2016.
Oh, back here.
2015, yes.
Okay.
And then you use that trend line all the way up. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Oops. Anyway, close enough. Something like that.
Yeah, we're really close to touching it.
Yeah, it's a huge rising wedge, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, people that keep saying that the Bitcoin maxis, like, they have, of course, it looks like right now everything that only matters is Bitcoin, but when you really look at the full picture, it's not a pretty sight.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll get more euphoria, because obviously the percentage value is going to keep going. It's going to keep increasing since we haven't yet topped. But once we top, that's not going to be a pretty sight, given the fact that we have such a large bearish divergence within this chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's been up only. Okay. Yeah, so there's dominance, and just the ETH USDT view is pretty much the same. I mean, if I had to guess, what are we on the weekly here? As far as future price action goes on, ETH specifically, it's probably doing some kind of triangle, and that will, I don't know what it looks like, something like that. But, we're looking at a weekly chart, so this takes a while to play out. So, tighter and tighter, and then it finally breaks out. And that will coincide, of course, with Bitcoin dominance starting to reverse back down. What else did we want to talk about? I mean, Nansen, I know I show this sometimes, but the alts in general are just, so oversold. All the tokens on CoinGecko, They're pretty much all the tokens that are tracked. They are sitting about 10% on average that are bullish, and that's going, you know, from a 30-day moving average all the way up to a 360-day moving average. So short-term and long-term, they're all sitting around 10%. That means this is a great buying opportunity. So eventually we're going to get this move back up, but for now, you know, they're just kind of sitting down here with things. You know, it's really interesting how it all works because, you know, you'll get some that are just sitting down. I'm trying to think of one. I mean, SNSY could be one example where, you know, it's hitting support multiple times, and you know it could be ready to go after it consolidates a little bit at the support. Maybe it dips a little bit under it. Lake is another example, and we're going to go over those in more detail here in a second. But then you've got other ones like maybe CASPA, which I don't have that one. Oh yeah, I do right here. So CASPA was up only for a long time. Distribution phase, which basically just means that it's the opposite of people that are accumulating. You got people selling slowly at the top, you know, trying not to attract too much attention, and then eventually it rolls over because there's too much selling pressure. So this one could still dip some more. So that's what I was talking about. It's interesting to me because you got some sitting at support that are already ready to go. It's just a matter of time. You know, it's a timing thing. And then you've got ones like CASPA that really haven't had much of a, you know, a dip in them at all, that could still come down some. And then once all these things kind of come together, then, you know, CASPA would hit its, you know, maybe it's going to come down to 3 cents, or could even be 1 cent. So I don't know. Well, actually it'd be more like 2. But, you know, once these things happen, the alt market in general could just take off. And that's not to say that all of them need to wait on each other. You know, they all do have their own timing, but it's interesting to me how that all works out. How in general, these that need to consolidate more, it's almost like everything's just trying to catch up with each other. And then once all of these things have hit a certain point, then the market's ready to go again. Let me just check. I haven't checked the chat here in a little bit. Oh yeah, Leon and Don are just saying, what's up? Hey guys. Yeah, and you know, anytime y'all want to talk, if you want to open up voice, if you want to type in the chat here, you know, any alts you want to look at, we'll take a look at them. This is your time. I did want to go back and show, this was a DGB chart that I had put together. I don't know, this was probably back in, it was either 2017 or 2020, something like that. I was trying to find the buy zones, you know, once this thing had its pump. And you can see how, you know, this has still been respecting these areas, even though I drew them a long time ago. So I would, if somebody really wants to learn how to do this for themselves and be able to take advantage of the next cycle, or, you know, even months from now, you know, this is something that you can do on every single chart as long as there's enough history. You know, it's very difficult when maybe this thing only has a couple different candlesticks right here. But if you've got, you know, enough history here over a year or two, then you can do these charts for yourself like this. And all it boils down to, I mean, you can even use fibs for this if you want to, but you just go from the bottom here on a higher time frame chart. And Tatiana, she likes to go from the candlestick body on either side all the way up to the wick. And I agree with that. It does seem to work out better that way. But now you can see once I did that, I've got my golden pocket way down here, which price does tend to gravitate towards eventually. So you got your golden pocket 618, you've got your 50% retracement right here, which these definitely tend to hit at least over a longer period of time. So you have this pump, it comes down 50%, which that wick actually went right through it and almost came down to the golden pocket. But you can see why this is important, because this candle body almost touched that wick exactly. So you had you know, resistance right there, it broke through it, and then it came back to test that resistance one more time before it pushed up again. So if anybody wants to learn how to do this, I'm happy to do another video. I've done a support resistance one showing how to draw these lines and everything. But if you combine this with fibs, I mean, you can easily do this yourself and be more prepared for the token that you want to accumulate in the future, especially after this first pump that we have. You know, you may want to be prepared for the next pump after that, or the big dip that happens after that. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it was very brief, but we can go into it more later. Just reach out to me if you want me to do another video about that. or if you want the one I've already done. All right, let's see. I see Luke's typing something there. While you're typing that, Luke, let me go into some of these. I got a couple DMs. People wanted me to look at a few tokens for them. Some people that weren't able to be here. And again, you know, interrupt me at any time. It's fine. This is your time here, so, you know, make the most of it, whatever you want to talk about. So here is Lake. I'm starting on a weekly chart. Always try to go to the highest time frame you can. Get that information first and then work your way down. That's the best way to do it. I'll just start on the weekly here. So currently, Engineering Robo does have a sell signal, but we are also kind of sweeping the lows here for that liquidity that we talked about earlier. You know, here was your support before. There's a bit of a sweep right here. And I believe that's probably the support level that's going to hold right there. So what we're looking for is, you know, as long as this support holds and it keeps building up buy pressure here, it's eventually going to start turning up. And you can incorporate your MACD on this if you want to, but clearly on the weekly, the reason why this is a sell signal, if your two lines, your two, what do they call these lines, the fast and slow line, if they're below the midline of this MACD, then this is bearish. So that's what it looks like on the weekly. But if we go down to, say, the daily, we did get a move above the MACD there, you know, above the histogram. So it was showing some bullishness, but then it turned right back around. So this is really just consolidation. You know, it's a sideways pattern. There's nothing you can really make out of it just yet, but it is bearish currently. You know, the two lines are below the midline histogram on the MACD there. But one thing to pay attention to in the future is sometimes you can get these bullish divergences that you can find early. See how this right here is creating a higher low on the histogram. This histogram that I'm talking about is these red bars or the green bars. And so you got a higher low there while price is coming down. There is a possibility, I think, of this support holding, and then eventually the MACD lines are going to start moving back up. So we'll see what happens with it, but currently there is a sell signal. And your support that I have on this chart anyway, I could probably bring it down just to that wick now that I'm looking at it. It's around 8 or 9, or 0008 or 0009. It's about what you want to be looking for a support area there. But you can see how choppy this thing is, you know, just within the intraday. You know, there's a lot of wicks on these candlesticks here. So, you know, I think weekly is just easier to look at. It's easier on the eyes. So what you're looking at is your overhead resistance is that bullish above line. And that's kind of why I put it there, because that was support and then it fell through and now it's bumping its head against that previous support. So once it gets back above that line, I think it'll be pretty easy to tell that things are very bullish for it. Okay, Luke wants to look at these. I think I've got ABT already up. I'm going to go through that one. Yeah, I'll get those other ones here in a second. I'll circle back. Let me just run through a few of these here. So SNSY, kind of the same thing. You know, it's sitting right there at support. I believe that this one's probably going to hold. You know, it could. Let me just see something here. Well, yeah, it's already, I mean, if you take this trend line right here, just using the candle bodies on a higher time frame, this trend line has been broken and it's rejected it. So I guess there is a chance that it could sweep one more time below that support. We'll just have to see. You know, it is showing some weakness there. If we go down to the daily and look at the, you know, the Engineering Robo Cloud, which the Engineering Robo Cloud is just moving averages, that's all it is. But you can see it kept rejecting back here. It got back above it and then it fell through again. So currently we're in the red cloud, and just like it did back here, we're just waiting to see if it's going to, you know, start closing candles back into that red cloud right there. And that's the same idea with the 2150 EMAs like Tatiana was talking about. You can still use those in these other charts if you don't have Engineering Robo. And that's another thing I can go over in the future on another video if y'all want me to talk about that, you know, how to use those things. Okay, IXS. Something I wanted to mention, and we've talked about it recently on a previous video. Notice how this thing took off. Let's see how much it made. So we had a pump all the way to the top of the wick of, well, wow, it was actually 110x. So if you get a huge move out of a token like this, but you're still interested in it, I mean, this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about just a minute ago, where, you know, people see this huge pump and they're like, oh, wow, this thing's just going to keep going. But look what happened. Back here, if I take this line right here, and I'm on the weekly, by the way, if I take that line and I just move it back down to the previous high before this one breached it, I mean, that exact same thing happened, right? You got a bunch of people piling in at the top here thinking that the all-time high is going to be broken, which it was technically, but they're thinking that it's going to be broken and then hold and then push again, because that's all that euphoria, right? But this thing had already done 100x, actually more than that. So, you know, why would you be interested in this one when you could find something that, you know, is still way down here that hasn't made its move yet? So that's what we want to be doing. We want to buy the discount. We don't want to pay the premium. So down here is the discount, up here is the premium. You're risking way too much, you know, entering something at the very top like this. Now there are caveats to that where, you know, maybe the market is super bullish and you've already had a close above the all-time high and it's come back down to, you know, retest that and it's starting to move up again. Sure, I mean, I could understand that. But when I see something like this and it's already made a 100x move, I'm just not interested in it in that moment. Now, this one has consolidated for a while. When was the top? So this was April, and here we are, May, June. So it's been 2 months, almost 3 months. I don't think that it's ready to move up again just yet, but that's where you would take your fibs right here, and you'd start it right there and go up to the top of that wick, which that's pretty close. So yeah, it's touched that 50% line that we just talked about, but there's still a chance it could come down here to the golden pocket, which is around, what, 5 or 6 cents, something like that. So that's why my bullish above line is way down here, which I don't know. I think I was just basing that on this resistance right here. Let me just see what the monthly would look like in that case. Yeah, this wick, I mean, just visually looking at it without fibs, these wicks are coming down into this previous resistance, but you could still see something like this, where this resistance right there, it kind of gets near that. You know, I'm looking at that wick right there. So it comes down and then reverses at that point, because that was the previous strong resistance area. So that's kind of why I have that bullish above line right there. Hopefully that makes sense for you. That happens a lot, where these wicks, it'll just come down and touch them or get close to them and then pump up again. This is a triangle, by the way. So if you wanted to just pay attention to this happens all the time. You know, if you get a close below this and a rejection, then it's going down. If for some reason it's already ready to go and it moves up, then you would just want to see, you know, which way it goes here. So this is the way to play it. You wait and see which way it breaks. You let it do its correction, you know, back towards where it broke out or broke down. And then if it holds that and comes back down, then it's definitely, you know, coming down one more time minimum. And then if it comes up here and then holds this, then it's ready to pump. But you'd still have to watch this line right here, because this was support and it fell through it. So this will be resistance when it comes back up, that 31 cents area. Okay, I think that covered, yeah, so that was Epicure. He was asking for those. So let me jump in here and look at Luke's here. Okay, ABT, and I'll come back. There was somebody else that had some other ones. I think it was Gwizzy asked for a few. I'll come back to his here in a second. Don't I have that one up? ABT, I thought I did. Yeah, there it is right there. Okay, so ABT is actually very similar to the one we just talked about, but let's just see how much it went up. Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good move, you know, 70x. The reason why I had this box, and you can probably tell based on what we just talked about, the reason why this box is here is because, you know, look at all these times that ABT hit that overhead resistance right there before it finally broke out. This is an amazing pattern, by the way. If you ever find one that's just gone sideways forever and it hasn't really done much, and then all of a sudden you start getting more bullish and it closes a candle above that area, then, you know, that's probably one you want to jump into. This one did pump a bit higher than that all-time high, but then it rejected it and came all the way back down. So what you're looking at, you know, very simply, is you could put a downtrend line right here, And you could just say, well, I'm not even interested in this one. You know, maybe you already own some, but maybe you don't want to add anymore until it gets back above this trend line, because you can see, you know, it continues to hit its head against it. And I suspect that it's going to keep rejecting that until it hits this box and then turns back up. And that would be kind of like a falling wedge. Not a perfect one, but sort of like one. I don't know, something like that. And you can watch MACD, or we must have been talking about this one before. I've got some lines here, but you can use MACD or RSI to help you find, you know, some early clues as to what it's going to do. But we're not there yet. Yeah, it may be trying to turn up here, but just know that even if you get a bullish divergence, sometimes these take a little bit longer to play out before they break out. Let me just see what the daily looks like here. Yeah, so we're still bearish on the MACD, but you could end up having something like this play out where, you know, the MACD kind of does something like this, and then it starts to create higher lows, you know, some kind of bullish divergence there at the very end before it turns up. But just know that these two lines, if they're under the histogram like this, then it is bearish overall. I do like this though, I will say that. I like how this tapered up right here. So let's just say that this does hold at the bullish line, then this would have been your early signal that this thing was turning back up. I'm just looking at one more thing here. So there is, if I take this line here and I just move it down a bit, see how this was a lot of support right here? You know, as this thing comes back up, if it is ready to move up right now, you have to see what happens right there at TP1, you know, see if it gets back above it. But if it hits its head again here, then it's probably coming down for a double bottom minimum somewhere near this box. All right, what was the other ones you had? Yeah, I'll get that one here in a second for you, Don. Arrow, I think I've got a chart for that one. Yeah, Arrow had a little pump, didn't it? Yeah, it had a little pump recently. Let me get this stuff off. Okay. Yeah, so there was some support here. It turned to resistance right there. I'm going to put it on the weekly to make it easier to see. Yeah, so a little bit of support there, resistance here, broke above. So now you've got some pretty good looking, well, I'm not going to call them good looking candles. I'm just going to say that they did close above the bullish line, which is good. There's still a lot of indecision. You know, if you see these spinning tops like this, that means you've got your buyers and sellers. They don't really know what to do. They're fighting against each other. So I would say as long as this holds the bullish line, then you're in good shape. And let's just think about, you know, what has this token been doing? You know, you got a really huge push. Let me see what that was. So this was back in February of last year. You got a move of about a 30x, 29x, something like that. It did a double bottom, actually swept a little bit below this support, and then it broke out again. But look, it made a higher high right there, just like the other ones we've seen recently, and then it fell back down. So swept the liquidity, like we talked about at the first of the video, and now it came down and swept this liquidity. So it swept below, you know, all of this right here, this support. I mean, I could even move this up to kind of illustrate it better. Get rid of this one for now. Yeah, so currently this is your support. I just wanted to show that this was the previous support and it fell through it, but then it regained it now, so that's really good. And I'm just trying to think, what else can we look at here? We can look at the fib. So we'll pull this bottom to top, and that did touch the golden pocket perfectly. So from a macro perspective, you know, from the very beginning of the creation of this token to the very top is where I pulled the fib, you know, from bottom to top, and you had a wick right into that golden pocket. So, you know, that, if you would have had this set, you know, before this even happened, you could have taken a position there. you know, just hoping that it was going to hold. Because previously, when this came down the first time, it hit the 50% area. That's the, sorry, that support's over it right there. There we go. So it's the 0.5 right there. So it came down, hit the 0.5, came back up, came down, hit the golden pocket. So now it's just a matter of, you know, can it keep this momentum? You know, is this enough of a correction that it's ready to go again? This would have been from the top to this local bottom, let's see, April, that's a year. So yeah, it's had enough time to consolidate. So yeah, as long as it holds this line, let me go back to where that line was. There we go. So as long as it holds this bullish line, you're good, is what I would say. 0.73, roughly. That's a very important area. All right, what was the other one you had? LCX. I'm going into these a little bit deeper just so you can kind of understand what to watch for. I know it's taking a little bit more time, but it'll help you to, you know, looking at your future charts as well for any other token, you know, what to look for, what to watch for. Yeah, LCX is one of these that's just kind of been sideways, hasn't it? And I like that. Actually, I may need to change these lines up a little bit. Let's see, maybe this one here. Yeah. Yeah, that looks good, okay. And I could actually just go ahead and drag one down for support. All right, so let me look at the monthly. That might make it even more obvious what's going on. So here you've got a W pattern that played out, you know, with a push back up to the all-time high, and now you're developing like an M structure. You know, so this made an M. So it's, you know, as above, so below. I think that's how Tatiana says it. I kind of know what that means, but you know, it's basically just a mirror of one another. So, you know, this one could come down and touch this line one more time. I don't know why I have two supports there. That one shouldn't say support. I can change that later. I think it's probably satisfied. You know, we're looking at a very high time frame here where this was resistance right there. And I had this line at the wick exactly, but you could actually drag it down to the candle body. So if we drag it down to the candle body there, you can see that since this was strong resistance before and it broke above it, and then it came back down and kind of did this M pattern, and now it's back above the bullish line. It's really similar to the one we just talked about where we need to see that it's going to hold this, I mean, I'm just going to call it roughly 12 cents area. It's a little bit below that. But if you can hold that, then it's probably ready to go again, and maybe it's doing some kind of, you know, triangle pattern here. Just draw some trend lines and have fun with it, you know, see if you can find something. So that's kind of what I would be looking at to see if it starts to tighten within this range. And if it does, it's probably ready to break out. But always remember, you know, you don't have to enter these early if you don't want to. You can wait and see what they do. You know, maybe it breaks down further, or maybe it keeps going up like this and then breaks out. I mean, that's the correct way to play it. Assuming this triangle does continue. I'm not saying for sure that it is one. It kind of looks like one. Okay, GFI, okay. Yeah, Goldfinch is a really good one. I know Nance and devs really like this one a lot. Here, I'll just turn off engineering robo on this. Yeah, it's holding support currently. So this was resistance at one point, broke above it, and actually had two really good pumps. And now it's just, yeah, I actually like this one a lot because look what happens here if we look at the fibs on this one. Yeah, this one hit the 786. And typically that's as low as it's gonna go. I mean, it did wick down to the 0.88. That's one I keep on my fib bar. It did wick down to the 0.88, which is, I mean, it basically retraced the entire breakout here, you know, when it started way back down here. So as long as it's a token that's not just finished and it's gonna end up way down here, just sitting down here forever, right at support, then this is generally a pretty good place to buy. This is your range currently. If you look at where it's been resisting right here at 91 cents versus 61 cents. So your range is between 61 and 91. And, you know, currently it's just bouncing between those. If we go to like a daily chart, you'll see it even better. So resistance up here, support down here. So you're getting a really good value at this level. And you could even play this, you know, just for the range here if you wanted to, if you were doing leverage or something like that. So you'd be buying at the 786 and you'd be selling at the golden pocket up here. It's just one way to play it. But if you're holding for long term, I think that this is a very good value where it's at currently. But if you were to lose the 786 at some point, I mean, it would be somewhat concerning just because, you know, it would be likely to come back down here, you know, kind of in this range where it was before and create a double bottom. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think it's kind of unlikely just because of how it's been reacting. You know, now you're creating a higher low right there after this low. But you could use the, if you go to a higher time frame, you could use the trend line idea where you just connect these and say, okay, trying to find the right area here. I guess it'd be right in there somewhere, maybe, yeah. So you say, okay,
No, I was just gonna say that's a perfect wave 2 correction.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
If anything, that's gonna explode up to wave 3.
Yeah, it just looks good, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like a complete retrace.
Yeah, it's like a wave 2 correction with a pattern of a cup and handle.
Oh yeah, good point. I didn't see that. So yeah, I mean, it may come up here and, you know, just break out like that. But, you know, if you want to just play it as safe as you possibly can, you know, maybe you're not willing to take the risk down here, then you would just wait until the breakout of that trend line if you want to draw one on your chart. But immediately, you know, once you've spent enough time in these charts and you're up here, you're looking at the macro chart and you're saying, okay, you know, what can I find in this chart that looks good to me, or, you know, that's going to turn me off of this token, whatever. You know, once you've pulled enough fibs, you can look at something like this and say, yeah, I mean, this thing's already retraced like 70%, just looking at it. You know, if it's a strong project, if, you know, people expect it to be around for a while, then, you know, you're buying for value down here. And, you know, it just looks good immediately when you open up the chart. Okay, that was Goldfinch, and I think we wanted to look at Doge next, yeah. And after this one, I'll slow down a little bit, and if y'all want to talk about some questions or anything about any of these charts, we can. Hang on, let me turn this off. There are some other tokens to look at, by the way. You know what? I think I'm going to let Tatiana take this one because she is the Doge expert by far. If you want to jump in on this one.
Sure.
Just let me know what you need. I think I talked over you. What'd you say?
I said, can you go on the monthly, please?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so right now Doge is pretty much retesting the previous top. I would personally say around this range between 13 and 17 cents was a good area. But I wouldn't personally, if you're looking for an entry, I wouldn't personally enter any play right now until we get the BTC dominance hitting that trend line that I spoke on the RSI. But for this chart specifically, I think we're gonna range between this range of 13 and 17 cents. And then from here, I see it shooting up to about $1.20.
I'm just going to put a box here on your 13 and 17. Okay. And what was that number that you think we're going to shoot up to?
$1.20. I mean, you could just measure it from its previous top to its current low, and then you can see what that gives you.
these two.
Yeah.
I went candle body to wick local.
Okay, so I would do, because it's the monthly, I would do the average of the wicks on the top. So I'd grab both
Maybe
those
that.
the two wicks. No, to the left side. You have 3 wicks, so you want to go to the second lowest. There you go.
Okay.
So you get 161.
Mm-hmm.
I personally sell before then though. Anywhere between $1, $1.25, I would personally sell. Yeah, that's pretty much the return I see.
I'm going to save this so I have it on here.
Now that we have this, I just want to make sure people understand that the 1.936 is the ceiling target, meaning it's the max target that I see hitting. On the spreadsheet that I gave, you will see some targets exceed that ceiling target, just because I was very conservative on the way I measured it. I wasn't being greedy with getting the absolute top and the absolute bottom. I was actually getting the average top to the average bottom. So that's why I want to make sure everyone understands that there is a possibility that you will see some targets exceeding the targets on the spreadsheet because of that. But I don't want you guys to be waiting for that. I want you guys to be exiting before we even hit that 1.936 because of the correction I've been talking about that should follow. Just want to make sure everyone is aware of that.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so basically what she's saying is the 1.369, the 618, and the 936 that she uses. I think we've talked about it before, but here it is visually. You know, the bottom line, the 1369 is conservative, the middle one, the 1618 is median, you know, the average of the two, and then the aggressive is the 1.936.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, though, because it's Dogecoin, and we're only talking about somewhere between a little over, where are we right now? Are we on 17 cents? We're talking about a little under 10x. So, yeah, I would focus more between the dollar and the 161 area to take profits, and I would eliminate the conservative target. Just because, like I said, we're talking based on its measurement from its most recent top and bottom. If it was a measurement based on March 2024 to now, then things are different because it's a longer time frame. So those are variables you have to take into account.
Mm-hmm. That's good, thank you. Okay, let's see if there's any questions on any of that. Yeah, Luke, I mean, GFI looks good.
Don wanted you to pull it up on Robo, so you should do that for him, actually.
True. Okay, let me just delete this. And okay, so as far as daily goes, let me make sure that those signals are on. Yeah, it's on. Yeah, so currently it's a sell signal, but that's pretty typical. I mean, when it's consolidating, you know, just like we were talking about before, what were we talking about, GFI maybe? Yeah, GFI. So you had this big move and it's retraced the entire move and actually under it a little bit. So this is scaring people, I'm sure. And she was talking about, this is your buy zone currently. So that was roughly 13 cents up to 17. So, you know, you could still get a little bit more of a dip, or maybe it just holds here and then it starts to slowly work its way up. But, you know, this is good value regardless. So just like Luke was asking, you know, what are some that might be a good value right now? Well, here you go. You know, Doge is one. GFI looked real good. So they're in buy zones currently. We're not saying that it's absolutely the low, you know, could dip a little bit more, but if you consider the returns, then, you know, if you look forward a month or two from now, you know, you're happy that you bought at those levels, basically. Yeah, and as far as other tokens, let me just, let's go through a few more of these. I had some more that were requested, and we'll see if we can find some. Let me look through the ones we talked about. Well, ETH, I mean, I still feel like ETH, if you're looking for a high cap token, to play, ETH can give you some pretty good returns still. Lake is looking pretty good. You got a sweep of the low, you got some liquidity grab right there. So, Lake's looking pretty good. I mean, I'm just looking for value. That's my thing. I just want value. I don't want to be buying something that's already gone up huge. SNSY, what do we have, a 10x? The question that you have to ask yourself is, okay, we have a 10x here. It retraced the entire move, and then it had another smaller pump. So basically that's a lower high, right? You have to think about things like this that could take some time still to consolidate, because it did have a big move. So this was, September 2024 to December. So that was 5 months ago, 6 months ago, something. Maybe it's not ready to move just yet, but you're still getting a good value. So, if you're looking for something that's ready to move immediately, I can't say what that would be exactly, but we do know that ETH tends to be a first mover, because it's kind of like the king of the alts, right? So once Bitcoin dominance does come down, you'll probably see the high caps go first, like we normally do, since we haven't really had a true alt season where that happens yet, because of dominance. So dominance reverses, high caps go first, maybe mid caps follow it. Maybe we have a typical cycle like that to finish out the real cycle. But yeah, I mean, those are the ones I would be looking at. I'm not really as interested in something like this just because it's had such a big move already. I'd be a lot more interested if it was way down here, or at least at the support line. So, just think value. That's what you're thinking when you're looking at all these. What is this one? Okay, so this is... Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, I'm responding to Luke on the chat. I really like NIR's chart as well, because aside from its chart, it's also a layer 1 and an AI, so it pretty much falls under 2 categories I think are going to be doing really great once alt season comes in. I would personally wait for it to hit, give me a second, I'm pulling it up right now, 151, right? I'd wait for it to hit 151. But like I said earlier, like, you want the confluence of when we hit that BTC, that dominance trend line. So if we hit that dominance trend line and we haven't hit that 151, then I would enter. Or the other way around, if we hit that 151 and the trend line hasn't hit, then I'd still wait to enter. So you want that confluence between the two, but 151 would be my entry target for NIR. It also has a good return for it. So the chart in itself looks really nice. The categories it checks off, and the return also checks off. So I would say NIR. What's another one? I think I spoke about AKASH as well. That's another AI play. But you could do the measurement for NIR right now for Luke, Ricky.
You're talking about from the previous, like the local bottom?
No, from its previous top to its local correction.
Okay. I kind of went average wick to average wick on this one.
Okay. What's your target that you have on there?
1618 is roughly 19.
No, the 1.9.
Oh, roughly 30.
Okay, yeah. So about 30 cents. I mean, $30. I would personally exit around 28, 25, 28. So that's a good return if you ask me. It checks off all the lists.
And you said AKASH?
Yeah.
This one, I'm getting about 36 on the 1.936. If I'm taking the very high, or do you want
Yeah.
the local?
No, that's fine. The can we measure the entire run from its actual bottom to see where how low it's gone?
Golden Pocket sits at roughly 70 cents. Currently it's at the 50.
I would hold off on that. I would hold off on AKASH, but I like AKASH too for its return where it is currently. So even if it goes lower, that means return is higher. But if I would choose between the two based on where we are right now, I would go with MYRIA just because it's already had a really nice wave 2 correction.
Yeah, I like that one too. Looks a lot like the GFI.
Somewhat. It's a bit different. It has more of a layout. It's more of a XRP layout, in my opinion.
Yeah, true. Okay, let me jump into a couple more of these. These are for Gwizzy. He had some questions here. And welcome, by the way, for everybody that joined late. MI22, Maple, Manny. Yeah, I think that's everybody. You can catch the recording when we're done. You know, the things that we talked about at the beginning. I'll post it as soon as we're all finished. So let's see, Game by Virtuals is one that Gwizzy wanted to look at. You know, sometimes he'll throw in these that are more degen plays, but you know, as far as virtuals and base go, I mean, these have been doing really well. I can't remember who is our local expert on virtuals. I haven't seen him for a while, so I forgot his name. Anyway, y'all know who I'm talking about if you're in degen chat sometimes.
I think it's Commander.
Commander, yeah. Sorry, it just hit my brain. It wasn't working too well. So yeah,
I'm getting worried about your memory, man.
Hey, I'm 50. It happens. Plus, I eat ice cream every night. That probably doesn't help.
I'm gonna have to send you some copper and magnesium tablets.
So, yeah, this game by Virtuals on Base Network. This is a tough one for me to call because you know you have had, you know, short-term price action is always going to be difficult, but you have had a 5x move. And I've noticed how some of these, once they have a 5x move, they just need a little bit of consolidation, and then they have another 5x move after that, maybe more. So it's tough to say. I mean, it did sweep the high right here. You know, you had a high here. It swept the liquidity. And the question now is, you know, is this thing going to come back down to correct maybe to the golden pocket? But I can't say that for sure because it's only made a 5x move. Had this been like a 50x or something like that, sure, I'd say, you know, this thing probably needs a correction. But, you know, it's really tough. I still probably wouldn't be buying here. I'd probably put a line here at the top and say, if this thing closes above, then I'll be interested in taking a position. Or if it comes down here to the golden pocket, which is around 2 cents, then I'll be interested. Because you know this is where all the support is, way down here. We don't know if it's going to continue this breakout just yet. So I would say just be safe. If you missed the first pump, you know, have these lines set up, and you can ask me, you know, send me the chart or send Tatiana the chart, and we'll find these areas for you. There's a lot of support right here as well. You can see that was resistance at one point. So maybe it comes down here and makes another bottom, you know, double bottom. So all we know currently is it's rejecting right there, right? It's rejecting at the top. So I would just be careful buying for a premium, you know, when you don't really know what's going to happen. Typically, you want to be selling tops, and you want to be buying bottoms. You know, that's all you need to really think about. If there was a top up here before, and it rejected even one candle, then there's a chance it could come down one more time. You know, typically, it needs more momentum. You know, maybe it needs to consolidate a little bit longer, and then have another go at it. And that's probably what's happening here.
I have my money on red on that one.
On red, yeah. Me too. Yeah, I mean, these ranges, like Tatiana, she's got a lot of experience as well, and that's what it's all about, right? It's just experience and repetition. And when you see enough price action, you're like, okay, well, here's my range, here's my bottom, here's my high, and I'm expecting this probably to reject one more time and come down here maybe, and this would be a much better buying opportunity down here.
Can you pull it up on a weekly, please?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It looks different on the weekly rather than the 3-day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does.
You said the measurement, did it hit the golden pocket yet?
No, it didn't. Let's see. Golden pocket sitting down there about, what, 20 cents? Or no, sorry, 2 cents.
Yeah. It could be two things. It either continues to go sideways, or it goes down to fill that wick, that long wick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really impressive, wasn't it? The buyer stepping in there and pushing it all the way back up.
Yeah, usually those wicks get filled
Mm-hmm.
before the next move. So.
Yeah, and that's we don't really talk about candlesticks that often, right? But that's kind of like a pincer, or whatever they call it, where you've got equal candle bodies, and actually technically on the 3-day, this is an engulfing candle of this one. It's just barely engulfing. So this is a bearish candle. And y'all can look into that. I mean, studying what candlesticks, what they mean, can help you. Like right here was an engulfing as well, and that ended up being another dip. It continued there. So something to consider. Okay, yeah, good thoughts there. So bid, this is very similar to what we've been talking about a lot with these tokens that have already made a big move. Well, I take that back. This is only like a 3x move, 4x move. But this is a W pattern, and if you look at what a W pattern is, typically they sometimes they get higher than the previous high. They'll sweep that liquidity up there. But anytime you get a W pattern like this with equal highs, the W is probably completed. So if I was to put a line up here at the previous high before this one was hit, it's almost equal. You could even bring up your MACD or your RSI and just see if you're getting any like bearish divergences or anything. I think I'll have to go down to like a daily or more. Yeah, it's still, I mean, this is starting to taper here. These two lines are possibly starting to taper while the histogram's starting to lose momentum. Price going up, momentum slowing down, probably going to mean that you're, coming down here a bit. Here was your previous resistance right there. If you're just looking at it and trying to find your highest local high back when this was happening, and then it broke above it. So this is your range currently. You're paying a premium up here, and this would be a value buy right here. And the reason I say that is this would be the first point that it would bounce from, probably. I'm not saying for sure, but it just makes sense that it would bounce there if it came back down. This is also it's kind of I don't know, it's not a perfect rising wedge, but it's kind of a rising wedge. This was a deviation above it right there. So anyway, you'd be looking for a bearish divergence, maybe on a lower time frame. Not really seeing much right now, but I suspect that's probably what's going to happen, is it needs a correction. And if you take your fib from the bottom to the top here, your golden pocket sits about 5 cents, maybe 6 cents. 50% line is right there where this resistance was. So yeah, around 6 to 7 cents, I think it could bounce from. And maybe it's just a dead cat bounce, like it'll come down here, work its way down, have a lower high, and maybe it comes down one more time and then eventually works its way back up. So just some things to keep in mind. I think it's probably going to run out of steam here, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, it's only a 3x move, so it could continue, but I am seeing some signs there, even with the candlesticks, that you're getting like a shooting star candlestick right there. And that's on a daily, yeah. Are we able to see engineering robo on this? Let me just pull it up for you in case you're interested. Quizzy. Yeah, you did get a buy there. There's no sell signal yet, but I suspect there will be at some point soon. Of course, if you get a close above this 13 cents area, then maybe it's just going to keep going. All right, SEI. I think some of you might be interested in this one because it had this pump. Oh yeah, it had this pump recently, and then it retraced that. So these are interesting where you create a higher low after a big dip like this. Let's just see I'm curious what the daily looks like. Yeah, so you had a buy signal, sell signal, buy signal. When we talk about those trend lines, this is what it looks like when it finally breaks out of one. So this is why you don't have to bottom search every time. If you want to wait for the engineering robo buy signal, that's fine. Either way, this would have worked if you would have drawn your trend line or you waited for the buy signal. And remember, I just want to make a point of this. Remember, when an engineering robo buy signal shows up in our alert channel, it's okay to wait a few days because it does tend to correct briefly and then it continues back up. Doesn't always work that way, but you can see it right here. It happened again. You got a buy signal. It actually retraced more. The wick came down much more than where the buy signal started. So at least wait a day would be my suggestion, and maybe you'll get a better price after the buy signal. It's just good practice. Okay, so on the weekly, you do have here was your local low, here was your higher low. Well, this is the local low now, but anyway, it created a higher low there. And if we look, well, the RSI for one thing is above the midline, so it's definitely showing it's bullish right now. If we were to look at MACD, that's still bearish technically because the two lines are below the histogram. But remember that a weekly MACD does lag. Get this thing out of the way. The weekly MACD lags, so this on the daily may look different. Let's see. Yeah, so on the daily, the two lines have already crossed above the histogram here. You got a nice push out of it. And yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good to me so far. Let me just take this off for a second. So if I'm just looking at the weekly and I'm drawing lines here, this was our previous support, strong support, where these candle bodies touched right there. And yeah, you've broken above it, so that's good. So that's what I would say. I would call this the bullish above line right here. As long as you can maintain this line, this is a good buy area. But if you were to dip back below it, then, I mean, at that point, if we put fibs on that, let's see, so that came down to the 50, this came down to the golden pocket. I don't think it's going to get below the golden pocket in this case, but if it was to reject and come back below that bullish line, you could get some kind of dip back down to 17 cents. If it was to lose that for some reason, then the lowest I think you would go is about 12 cents down here at the 786. So those are just some levels to watch for. And then as far as a target here, and I'm sorry I haven't been doing targets on all these, I should have been. But if you do have a specific question on a target, let me know. Yeah, so the 1618 on this one's around $2. The 1936 is around $3. So pretty good return on this one as well, even though it's a high cap. Let me check chat. KTA, yeah, that was actually requested. So good timing. Good timing on that one, Manny. I'm going to show you that one right now. Oh, yeah, I actually did want to talk about this one a little bit. So there was a token, and I can't remember which one it was, but Tatiana called it before it broke out. This would have been maybe early 2024. The reason why it's so noteworthy is because it had this long consolidation period like we were talking about a minute ago. So in this case, it was March 2025 to May. This one just kept consolidating sideways, and then eventually you got a big candle breakout above this area. So if you ever see this pattern, definitely pay attention and draw you some lines at the top, which this would probably be more like that. But just go to a higher time frame even. Let's see what the weekly looked like. Well, I don't know if I'd use the weekly in this case because it didn't have much. There you go. So look at like a 3-day, and I'll turn off Engineering Robo here. So this is one of our learning moments, basically. You know, we try to teach some things that we've learned over the years. Go to the highest time frame you can, draw your line at the top of the candle bodies and the low of the candle bodies. So this is the range that it's in currently. And you could even call this it had kind of a triangle appearance at the time as well. So you had a breakout of this trend line, which you could have entered on the breakout of that trend line even, but if you were playing it super safe, you would have jumped in after it closed a daily candle above this top line right here. So all of your lines can be drawn at a higher time frame, and then you go down to the daily, and it'll give you a much quicker signal on when to enter. So if you would have been following this trend line, you would have entered right there on that daily candle, or if you were waiting for this breakout of this upper trend line or upper line, then you would have waited till this daily candle closed, and then you would have captured this whole move. What else did I want to say about this? I mean, there's other patterns like triangles that appear, you know, throughout these structures. And I do post, let me just bring this up real quick, on the education channel for those that don't know, like right here. You know, I have posted what some of these things look like, just so you remember. I joke around how I should have done this one to look like a hot dog, where the mustard just didn't stay on the hot dog there. It reminds me of a hot dog consolidation. But yeah, all three of these are very powerful. You can make a lot of money with any of these. But the consolidation and the triangle breakout are the easiest ones to play. So just remember that education channel is there if you want to go in and look at some of that stuff. So there you go. You know, there's two of them, consolidation and a triangle, that both turned into a pump. All right, so jumping ahead of all of that, just talking about where this thing might bounce at, which it looks like it has already found an area to bounce at. I doubt it gets under this 40-cent area, but let's just take a, let's see here. And that was really the start of the pump. So I'll take that, and I'm gonna go to right here. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm starting at a higher time frame to find my fibs, and you know, you can go down to a lower time frame if you want to make it more clear. But you can see that all these wicks hit the 786 area roughly. So I think it's satisfied, you know, enough of a consolidation that it's probably ready to at least go sideways again for another move. So to me, it looks like you know, roughly 65 cents is probably your low for right now, where you want to see it hold. I think that's about right, 66 cents. So you could call that your bullish line. And whenever I label them like that, it just means that as long as it's holding that bullish above line and you can buy close to that, then you're getting a good value. You know, we're always looking for value. Now, if you lose that line, then what you want to be looking for is the 46 cent area, possibly 30, you know, roughly 30 to 32 cents area. But I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that it would come down that low at this point. How much did this pump? I mean, if this is like a 100x move, then I could see it coming that low. Okay, so that's only a 12x move. Yeah, so I suspect, I mean, look how this is very strong support right there, because it was support back here as well. So you're good as long as it's holding this bullish line. And then as far as a target, let's just see what this right here looks like. Let me get rid of that one. Targets are looking like $2.40 and about 280. So that would be the, I mean, it's not a huge return on this one, but yeah, that's only a 3x. I mean, we're looking at local. So if we were to go something like a weekly, let me see what target it gives us there. I mean, this would be for a macro view. I think part of the problem is it just doesn't have enough history. You know, if we had more history, it would give us a more clear target.
Well, it's also, Playing this play though is very risky because it just had a massive move and it topped in June.
Mm-hmm.
So we just went into finishing talking about how like we need some time to actually correct, and given the fact that it just topped in June, I would not be in this play after this run, especially because it just ran a 10x.
Yeah.
I would transfer those funds into something that hasn't ran yet.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, basically what she's saying is, and I probably extended this too far out, but you know, after these moves like this, they do need some consolidation time. So, you know, what if this thing just went sideways for a while and then was ready to go up? And you know, maybe it only went up as much as what we were looking at, and only had like a 3x in it or something.
It can run. It can run when everything starts running, of course, but given that it just finished topping in June, that's very risky because you do hold the chance of not having it run that much.
Mm-hmm.
It's too risky, at least for my own liking.
No, I agree for sure. Yeah, we want to find good values and ones that have the best return. Let's see, KTA, we went over that one. And then we'll look at Brett. Let me make sure I covered, we covered ABT. Okay, so let's look at Brett. And I never know if y'all are talking about Brett on base or if it's Brett on ETH. Did you want Brett on ETH or Brett on base? I think that's what it is, isn't it? There's one on base, one on ETH. I'll jump ahead to Rio while you're answering that if you can hear me. I'll check back after Rio. All right, here's Rio on the weekly. Let me take this off. We'll just look at it without engineering robo here. So we had a pump of roughly 20x, and now it's back to these support levels. Let me just move my lines around here a little bit. I haven't looked at this one in a while. Yeah, so I kind of see support as right in there because there was resistance right there and over here as well. So what we're looking for is we'd like to see it above the support level. And currently it looks like it's rejecting it to me. Yeah. So look at all these wicks that you're getting right here. You know, you're getting a lot of rejection. I mean, there's another line here somewhere where it's rejecting at. Yeah, that kind of coincides with the wick right here. So I don't know, it looks weak to me currently, just, you know, kind of taking it all in. And if we look at the fib lines, what they're giving us. Yeah, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. It's rejecting at that golden pocket, which I know my fibs are a little bit, they're weirder than most people would set them up. But if I reverse them, then that shows you your targets there. I just got them set up to where I can only see the retracement areas. So 786, it actually touched the 88 right here, but it's rejecting the golden pocket. So that is your range currently, I'm gonna take these fibs away for a second here. So here's your range currently between the 786 and the golden pocket. You can see that you're getting wicks down here, you're getting wicks up here. My guess is it's probably gonna consolidate between this range for a little bit. I mean, nothing's really jumping out to me. I don't like the chart in general, just looking at it. You know, maybe after a consolidation, it'll be ready to go. But you got it lost this support right here. This was clearly support after this big 20x move. When did this happen? March 2024. So it has had a year, you know, to work through all of this. Let's see what our target is for this one. So our target is roughly, 17 to 44. So 44 would be the aggressive area. That would be a really impressive move. I mean, personally, I don't see it going up that high. I think that's why I put the TP3 here at 28, is because it's kind of the median between these two. But that would still be an amazing move if it was able to pull that off. And Rio is a pretty strong project in general. I mean, I don't marry myself to any of them, but what you want to watch for on the way back up, I mean, this is a good value regardless if you like this token, because if you think about it, if we go to like a monthly, here's this big move, you know, you can see it better with these green candles. I mean, it's completely retraced the whole move. So you're way back here, back at support. Tatiana may want to chime in here, you know, do you think that there's a possibility of a sweep still to come on this one?
The sweep below
Mm-hmm.
the previous lows?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it does have a possibility going below those previous lows, but I personally like the chart just because it's already retraced its foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're getting its base price. And if we go back to the confluence aspect of it, given that it's already retraced all the way to its base price, and it's had an entire year of correction, it looks like a wave 2 correction for me from looking at this chart. I would expect at least hitting at minimum the previous high. So I personally like the chart for those reasons. But can it sweep its lows? Yes. And the reason why I say that is because, like, it goes back to the dominance chart. We haven't talked yet. So it could either go sideways or it could go slightly below where we are now. But either way, I think this should have a nice run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the returns are great on it for sure. And that's a good point that she made right there, is that it can look two different ways. You know, alts can do different things when that dominance is still working its way, you know, up some more before it turns around. You could either get consolidation or you could get a sweep like that and then a move back up. And that would look something like a, you know, inverted head and shoulders most likely. So just something to keep in mind. But like she said, I mean, you are getting a good value here because it has retraced that entire move. So, you know, if this is your token, if you like it, even if it was to sweep, you're still getting a good value, you know, by the time that the token has made its move back up to even the highs here. That would be a 10x move if you were to buy right now. So just keep that in mind. Okay, MI, are you still there? MI, if you can hear me, MI22, tell me which Brett you want, whether it's the ETH version. Oh, there you are. So is it Brett ETH or base? Okay, I never know. Okay, where did I have that? There we go. Let's see if there's a WETH. Yeah, here we go. All right. I had to do a double take that almost looked exactly like Rio did just then. So this, to me, this looks a lot like Rio. You know, just the overall where it is currently. So yeah, I see what Tatiana's saying. I mean, this charts like this are definitely, you know, could be something that looks really good to most people just because you've got this pump and it's come all the way back down to cover that entire pump. Hang on one second, I got a call. I just want to make sure it's nothing super important. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so, you know, if we're just looking at local price action, you've got your bottom right here, go up to your top with your fib. It's hit the 786, that's great. It actually almost touched the 0.88. So maybe you're creating a higher low here. You'll have a little bit of a, you know, maybe some rejection when you come up here to the 5 cent area when it first starts making its move. But I suspect, you know, once some consolidation happens between the 4 cent and 5 cent area, it'll start to work its way up. Again, one easy thing to do is just pull a trend line like this. And there you go. just wait until it breaks the trend line. If you don't want to look at anything else, just do your trend line like that, or wait until, let me verify and see if we have Brett on our, see Brett base, that's the sell signal. Yeah, that's the buy signal right there on the daily chart. So Brett is in our engineering robo alerts. So that's the other thing that you can do is, if we turn on engineering robo here, I just want to see, I'm sure it's a sell signal, it has to be. Yeah, so there's your sell signal. And I guarantee you it's going to coincide with it. So once this breaks above that trend line right there, you're going to get a buy signal. It always happens. But you can see you got a breakout.
Most of these charts that we're looking at are literally doing, or at the bottom of, or close to the bottom of wave 2 corrections.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of time these coins explode. Now, like coins, for instance, where they broke their lows, like for instance, Osmosis, it has its bullish divergence, right? That you just measure it. Same thing as persistence. But most of them overall are literally completing their micro wave 2 corrections. So the likelihood of it going lower is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
So we could either go, like for instance, Brett, for instance, I would at most expect it to go to its baseline, and that's it, at most.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it's already had a nice wave 2 correction where if I was looking to enter Brett, I would measure it and see if it's hit its 0.846 from its top and previous base. And if it has, then I would enter. Yeah, overall, they're all micro wave 2 corrections waiting to go into wave 3, which wave 3 is just an explosive move up where it just happens really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was good. I think people should get excited. I mean, I know Tatiana's been excited for a while, and she even gets me excited about some of the stuff, the way she talks about it. But, the things she's saying just make a lot of sense. The reason why I put that bullish above line there is because once it gets above there, then that's when you get your buy signal. The question is right now, like she's saying, could it come down here, touch support one time? Sure, and then move up. But you're not really risking that much, on that move. So if you wanted to go ahead and start accumulating something like Brett right now, then it's fine. There's a lot of return left in it. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, I was gonna check chat, wasn't I? Okay, so we looked at Rio. We're gonna look at anyone, and I'll get to yours, Luke, here in a second, and Alan. Yeah, Alan, if you want to ask those verbal questions right now, and T can handle them, unless it's specifically for me. But yeah, go ahead and ask those to T.
Okay, you guys can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this whole stream started off, and I told you guys about just round tripping tons of times. So I purchased a few tokens back late November, I think early December, before we had like the major pullbacks with most stuff. I believe the two coins I have in question, Catalorian and TITANX, I think we're on our long-term plays. Later on, I bought some strategic Bitcoin reserve, which I still have a small amount of that. But I'm sort of in a point as of course I'm looking at T's spreadsheet, and I'm just excited looking at these numbers. And so this is kind of how that round trip mindset, I guess. I know you guys always talk about conviction, Spike. You talk about that often. So I'm just kind of wondering. I'm just thinking I want to just either dump these 3 coins and maybe jump on something that I see in the spreadsheet. So that's one question. I don't know if you guys want to take that one, or T, you want to take that one, or I should ask the second one.
In regards to be fairly completely honest with you and transparent, those coins you mentioned, I know none of them.
Yeah.
I know Titanium X is the coin that I think Rob brought up.
Oh, okay,
Um,
got it.
so he can give you more insight on that
Sure,
coin.
sure,
I
sure.
personally I don't know anything about it.
Okay,
But if I was in your situation, and given that it's like pretty much your first actual bull run, I'd
hmm,
mostly focus on safer coins rather than micro coins, because you're in a place where you're trying to build your portfolio, correct?
correct.
So you need to go towards the top 150, and then see how much capital you grow from that, and then compound that on a safe side for the next time we go into the next run. You don't
Okay,
need micro plays to make a lot of money. You just need to strategically know what you're buying and where you're going to sell it, and then compounding those profits
got it,
for the next cycle.
got it. Okay. So
Um,
that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, sorry, go ahead.
So that kind of takes me into that second question because, so in my mind, the amount, the amount of money I put in back in November, December, I was really shooting to. I think there was at one point you maybe posted something about, get your portfolio up. And this is, I'm just paraphrasing, so I'm sure I probably have this all wrong, but it was something about like get to 10 grand. And then you had a surprise for us, or a coin that you didn't want to mention, which I think since then you may have mentioned was Doge. And I swear, like, I don't know, maybe, I'm just fantasizing, but I was just thinking, okay, if I can get this currently to 10 grand, then whatever the surprise is, I think maybe it's going to take me to $1 million. And I know I'm probably fantasizing like crazy. I just want to, of course, just quit my job, but I don't know if I
Yeah,
just
you're not.
totally.
No, you're not fantasizing. Yeah, Doge is gonna give us that possibility, but like I said, it's not gonna happen within this cycle right now. Right
Got it.
now, we have to focus on compounding the money within our portfolio to
Hmm.
have that money put aside for the next cycle. Because the next cycle, we're gonna make more money. But like it's just, I feel like most people when they go into crypto, they're thinking about making the next 100x move to
Yeah.
become a millionaire overnight. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, we're not at that phase anymore, unless you're wanting going into memes, of course, but that's just straight gambling at that point.
Yeah, it
You can
is.
do it in the safe side where you'll make money and compound those profits, and you'll walk out with seven figures. And the thing is that you don't really need a lot of money to put to crypto doing it the safe way either. So
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
go back to your first question, I would specifically focus on the top 150 coins.
Okay.
Look at which call you. I'd focus on the two categories of AI and later ones, and then see which ones call you in that end. And if you have any
Sure.
more questions, like just feel free to DM me, and I'll be happy to help you with that.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thanks for answering both. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll touch on TITANX here in a second. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm sure you saw me doing this in my 22, but anyone looks to me like it has broken, above that trend line. Now, sometimes we do get a deviation above and then it fakes out, but that's why I have that bullish line here. Is if it was to hold the bullish line, then you're good. So that's what, 39 cents roughly. So as long as it holds this, I think that it's probably ready to either consolidate sideways a little bit before the push, or it's ready to start pushing up now. Of course, Bitcoin dominance is a big player in all this. We need for it to reverse first, and that's probably why this thing goes sideways, or maybe even down a little bit first. So it could follow this trend line and come back down here and even do a double bottom. But as far as right now, as long as it holds 39 cents, then you're good to go, because this was the resistance back here, and it coincides with a fib line as well. I don't know if this, I think it probably had a buy signal already, but you're looking at about a 20x
Yeah,
move.
that looks like a healthy chart.
Mm-hmm.
Is it what's the history on that chart? How far back does it go?
Goes back to July 2024 on this chart anyway. This is on MEXC.
Okay. I would specifically with this chart layout, I wouldn't focus on breaking all-time highs.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. It has the same layout as Bitcoin dominance.
Yeah, that's true. It does. Yeah.
So it does look healthy right now, and it can possibly go to its previous high. But yeah, now that I saw the entire picture, it's not that great.
Yeah, your first targets for profit taking anyway, if you hold this one or plan to buy it, is around what, maybe $1.35, and if it was to get back up to the all-time high, would be about 220. But the reason for that is because there's a fib line right here where there's a lot of resistance, right in this area, and then definitely if it was to get up to the all-time high, what you'd be looking for is to see if it just poked its head up above and then came back down. So just remember that's a possibility. If it was to get up to the all-time high, it could just come up here like this and then come back down. We've seen many of those.
But like, this could easily create an ABCDE triangle where we are right now, and it could just go to its previous high that it hit. What is it? April, May, and June. Is that June? No, May.
May, yeah.
Right there. Yeah, it could go either slightly below that or there to where it's at now, and then just correct from there.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say this is because this entire layout, this is a bearish layout as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that can invalidate what I'm seeing right now with this layout is that if we go to its previous top of December and it corrects from there, because then it could easily give you a cup and handle.
Yeah.
But because we went below those lows from August to December of 2025, right now we have a bearish layout.
Yeah, you can see why she's saying that is because all this was support at one point, and then it lost that. It even tried to get back above it here, and it rejected. Then it rejected again. So what you'll see is, I don't know what it would look like coming back up, but typically, I mean, it's true, you don't see it break on the second attempt. This would be the second attempt here. So maybe it does some kind of triangle over time, then eventually breaks out. But, I agree with that. I could definitely see it rejecting again first. So that's good, good things to keep in mind. All right, so that's anyone. Just briefly, I'm going to touch on TITANX since you brought it up when you were asking that question, Alan. This did get a sweep of these lows over here. So I think there is a chance that it could still, get bullish again, especially once the Bitcoin dominance gets moving in the direction we want it to move. But this was resistance at one point here at this bullish line, and that's why I have it where it's at. I'm not going to say that number because it's got way too many zeros, but just 33 is the number, basically. That's what it needs to get above to get much more bullish. So, I could probably even bring that line down a little bit, actually. Yeah, so 3.2. And you can see it rejected it once right there. There was a shooting star candlestick. Mm-hmm. So, it looks like this support's probably going to hold now. Double bottom, maybe even a bit of a higher low, because it has swept this liquidity over here. It swept down below this low. So I could see it moving back up, but it probably will reject once more once it gets back up here. It just, we'll have to see how long it takes to consolidate before the next bigger move.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, it made a really big move. When was that? I think that was this one that we caught. So it's just, it's consolidating before the next move is all that's happening. And I'm going to try to get through these a little bit quicker since we're about an hour and 50 minutes on this video now. I don't want to make it too long. So MYRIA was another question. Let's see. Well, there's no reason to pull a fib on this one because it's definitely come, it's more than a one-to-one move from this bottom to this top. I think right here, roughly, would be your resistance. Yeah, somewhere in there. So if we pulled this fib, it would tell us, I think, Yeah. So coming back up, I don't know what this is going to look like coming back up, but it could create some kind of, slow climb, or, maybe it turns back around and does a double bottom. We don't know what it's going to look like just yet, but it's kind of what we just looked at on the previous two, where it's rejected once, had a huge rejection. What's going to happen when it comes back up to this line? It might reject again and need to consolidate further. So it's just Bitcoin dominance is causing a lot of this to happen right now. So I would expect some kind of consolidation and then finally breakout. But this is around 0019 roughly. And once it gets above that, I'm going to label that the bullish line.
Is MYRIA a gaming fund? What is it?
I think it might be. Let me see.
No, it's a layer 2. Okay.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it though.
Mavia? Is it Mavia?
Yeah, Mavia. That's it.
Okay, that's what I was confusing with.
So basically what I'm seeing is once this thing does get above the bullish line, you can see how it might create on a higher time frame a inverted head and shoulders or something like that. Because it is going to reject again right there at that, well, I'm going to call it the golden pocket, but there's some kind of resistance right there as well. So there's some areas as it goes back up that it's going to reject and then need to gather some more momentum. Oh, Luke's saying MYRIA is gaming also. So I guess it has a gaming element to it as well. Oh, and QUBIC. Yeah, I did want to go over QUBIC because I know a lot of people have questions about that one. Yeah, QUBIC's a tough one to figure out. I mean, it doesn't seem, actually, I'm going to bring something up here that's interesting to me. If I bring up the dashboard on Engineering Robo, I'm pretty sure I checked last time, and it shows up as not correlated with Bitcoin or like 50% correlated with it. So it tends to move when Bitcoin is struggling, I think, maybe. I'm trying to remember how that goes. Let's see what this dashboard says on it. Actually, it's showing 0 correlation to BTC right now, so it's basically the inverse. So that's funny. But you can see, I mean, it has been consolidating. It did have a move up while Bitcoin was struggling. Let me turn this off again. So yeah, high or low there. I mean, things looked really good down here. Let me just see what this was showing at the time. I mean, to me, it looks like we're losing some momentum on the MACD. And I had drawn a thing, as far as the path that I thought it was going to take. I thought it was going to come down one more time, but it kept going. So let me just see. I'm trying to find if there's some kind of, there's a line there somewhere where there's another resistance line. And if we pull the fibs after putting that there, I'm sure we'll find it. So we're going to pull it from the top to the bottom. And there it is right there. It's the 50% line. Yeah, so you rejected there, you broke through it, you fell back through it once more. And now right here at the 382, you're rejecting a bunch. Yeah, so what I'm looking at is I think it could come back down here to, I'm going to pull this down just a little bit and then get rid of the fib. So what I'm looking at is it could come back down to here still, I think, and then we'll see what happens at that point. But this is your range currently between these two lines. You've got 5 zeros, 1 8, and 5 zeros, 1 1 or 1 2. So it's just consolidation for now, and we'll have to see what direction it wants to go. I suspect it's going to, come back up to this trend line or something, but there is a lot of resistance for it to work through right there, where we had that line at the 50%. And then as far as a target, I know everybody wants to know the target on QUBIC. I don't know why my lines are so off on this one. Let me just adjust that a little bit. All right, so if we were to put a price range on this to TP2, it would be about a 6x, and then TP3 a 10x. You know, it's possible it could do like a 20x still, but we'll just have to see. I mean, I think take it 1 week at a time and just see what happens. This is a 3-day chart, by the way. But, you know, first we need to get out of this. Trying to see why I must have done that on a daily. Oh yeah, I connected that with this one, okay. So first we need to see it break out of this right here. So I think it's gonna coincide with this TP1 and the trend line right there. Once it gets above there, then I think, you know, these targets are in play.
Yeah, I wouldn't focus on CP4 on that chart.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, what, dog is the only one? Okay, so let's look at dog and let's wrap it up here so we don't go over 2 hours. I think I have a dog chart. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think we're probably looking at something similar to, I can't remember which one it was we looked at, but you know, your golden pockets down here, you had a big breakout. If you would have put a trend line here, you could have, well, somewhere here, you could have found out when it was going to break down right there. I mean, just simply, you can see that, you know, you had a breakdown and then it rejected that. So, you know, use your trend lines, have some fun with them, just get used to using them. Sometimes they can give you future information if you extend them out, and in this case it would have. So yeah, so you got a rejection there, and you're getting another rejection here. So, sorry, let me text somebody here real quick. Okay, even though you do have a buy signal, I think you have to consider that it could still come down here to the golden pocket, and maybe even the 786. And the only reason for that is we're still, you know, Bitcoin dominance is putting a lot of pressure on alts still, even the ones that have made a good move. And you have to consider, well, you know, these other ones are correcting. Could my token correct still one more time? And even though you had a nice breakout, you know, sometimes these breakouts have to be retested before you can move further. You have to gather that strength, you know, try to gather some more buyers, some new fresh wallets before you can push up again. I was just going to look and see here what would be, I think right here, if you were to see a candle close back above like 0047, then that would indicate that it's ready to keep moving. I'm talking about like near term, if you were to see that. I really do feel like even though you got a buy signal here, that's probably at the minimum going to dip down to like 0034 or 0035, something like that. So just be aware of that. You know, at minimum, I think you're going to see something like that, some consolidation, and then it's ready to go again. But just know that this is still a possibility, you know, to gather some momentum to push higher. But the chart overall looks fine. I mean, I don't see any problems with it because you're above what was support before right here, where it lost it and it swept all this. It got back above it. It looks really strong. So I like that it's above this purple liner here, this bullish above line. And then as far as targets go, let's just see what it shows us. Yeah, I already had my TP2, TP3. So if we were to put this on it, just from here, it's a 4x and like an 8x. And then if you get really lucky, it's like a 17x. But yeah, it looks pretty good. And I know it's getting a lot of attention too on social media. Okay, well, I know we lost some people throughout that because that was a long one, but I appreciate y'all all joining us, and thank you, T, for being here today too. I know it was a very early one for you, but if anybody has any final questions or comments or anything, you know, feel free to say whatever you want to say. It's all good. I see Leon typing something there. Yeah, you're welcome, guys. I'm glad y'all are enjoying these. I know they're pretty in-depth, in detail, but the reason why we do it this way is we just want to, do that repetition for you so that you can do it for yourself and feel more confident. Yeah, what Maple said. Okay, guys, well, y'all have a good weekend. We will, we're just waiting on Bitcoin dominance, right? That's the most important chart right now. But let's try to get outside. It's going to be 100 degrees for me, so I don't know if I'm going to get outside, but I'll try. At least we can get out in the morning and get some sun in our face, right?
Take out your little kiddie pool.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. My brother just bought his kids a new one. They live right next door to us. So maybe I'll jump in that one. It's like 1 inch deep. Okay. Well, thank y'all. Oh, yeah, Thailand. Sun is 365.
What a dream.
Really?
All that fruit, too. Oh, my God.
It's a great area to live in the world. Okay, well, y'all have a good rest of your day, and we'll do another one of these next week. And in the meantime, again, if you have anything at all that you want to send DM, to me, Tatiana, or Rod, feel free to do that at any time. We'll get right back to you as soon as we can. All right, have a good day. Thank y'all.
All right, have a good day.